and welcome to the Bald Ambition podcast. I'm your very bald host, Mookie Spitz, and the one full of ambition today is Mr. John von Seggern. He is the CEO and founder of Futureproof Music School, located here in Los Angeles. It's a real pleasure to have you on the pod, John.
Yeah, thanks. I'm glad to be here. Yeah, Futureproof is actually an online school. So while we are in Los Angeles, we don't have a school here in LA.
Asynchronous.
We're gonna start hosting some boot camps, though, I think, here in LA soon.
Terrific. We can talk about your interface and how that works digitally and online. One of the silver linings of the pandemic, as we know, is people have become comfortable almost to the point of anticipating virtual experiences, especially educational ones. So that model of being able to cover the entire country, albeit the whole world, is I'm sure eminently useful to you and your students.
Yeah, it's been interesting for me. I've worked in online education for about 15 years, all in the same field of electronic music production, and the tools that we use and the experiences that we're able to deliver have changed drastically in that time. I've always been on the forefront of adopting new technologies to help people learn better and faster. AI is the latest wrinkle of that, and we can talk about that. Honestly, the biggest advance was when Zoom came in, which was before the pandemic. I got my school on Zoom in like 2018, I think. And that was such a game changer because the previous video systems weren't really good enough. You didn't quite feel like you were there talking with somebody. And also, Zoom had a couple features that made it a lot easier to share music through the meeting. So previously we were using Google and some other systems, but it was really quite difficult to be able to share the audio from your computer. You could always share your screen, but sharing the audio is harder. But Zoom made that easier. So after that point, then it was possible to deliver a lot more personalized education where you were having one-on-one meetings with a teacher and talking through your projects and that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's amazing. Google, Microsoft with Skype, decade prior, right? They just completely dropped the ball on this, and Zoom pretty much came out of nowhere. Unfortunately, I don't think Zoom has been able to follow up on their momentum from the pandemic in terms of broader integration. And I've been hearing Microsoft Teams is now becoming a dominant form of video.
Well, for musicians, we have special needs as far as being able to transmit high quality audio and also MIDI data potentially. So I'm actually talking to a couple of companies that are making special video meeting systems for musicians. And they do have some advantages. Everybody knows how to use Zoom though, so it's kind of a standard. But anyway, yeah. So it's and then I guess I was going to say when the pandemic hit, then yeah, everyone was going to school online. And then since then, I think everyone, or at least many more people than before, realized what are the benefits of studying online and what it can offer, and also what are the things that you can't get from studying online. And I've always wanted to try to offer the most effective experience to people. A lot of it you can deliver online, and then there's parts where you can get people together in real life to
I think everything
share
is
what
a
they've
trade-off.
learned.
Right? Yeah, everything is a trade-off. I just want to be transparent in terms of my biases. I am a huge fan of EDM, electronic dance music. I'm assuming that some of your students are working toward that craft.
Well, it's fun. Yeah, it's funny you say that. So I'm full disclosure. I started my career as a jazz musician, and I'm an acoustic bass player actually. And then later I became more of a session musician. And then later I became an electronic musician. When I started at my last school, Icon Collective, where I worked for 8 years running the online program, they went out of business last year, or actually just a few months ago, sadly. But they were we used to call it the MIT of bass music. And so now Most of the people that are working with me now worked at that school and are kind of from the EDM world. My partner is a pretty famous dubstep star. His artist name is Prototype. And so he's kind of the public face of the company. He does all of our social media, and he's made some of the courses, and he does some of the classes. And our most common type of student are people that want to be like him at the
That's
moment.
great. That's exciting to me. I'm slightly on the older set, so I like the old style raves. I'm an Armin van Buren
Uh-huh.
kind of
We
guy.
have people to teach you too. We have a very famous house music producer on staff actually,
Yeah.
JJ Hernandez.
Andy Moore,
Hmm.
those types, right?
Hmm.
So you have a very sympathetic ear regarding the end state of empowering the new generation with the tools they need to succeed in this, what I think is a very exciting genre, and it's evolving and changing, and I'm sure you could talk about that. But I would like to focus on the challenges facing your students right now and de facto ones that you face. You mentioned artificial intelligence. Velvet Sundown was the latest AI creative scandal. And just to remind the listeners or educate them about this, they were a completely synthetic band, ostensibly created in Italy. They showed up out of nowhere. They garnered millions of streams on Spotify, and they were suspicious from the onset. Rick Beato, the musical polyglot on YouTube, analyzed their music and concluded that they were probably AI. Finally, they fessed up that they were a completely synthetic band, all the way up to their band photo, which screams generative.
Yeah, I saw that
so
too.
so that was an illustration of the situation I believe the music industry and especially young artists are in, not only in music, but in every modality:
Hmm.
literature, writing, photography. We've reached the point where it becomes increasingly difficult to differentiate the real thing from the AI counterpart. How are you facing this challenge in terms of your business model, in terms of how you're organizing and structuring your classes, and essentially sharing a value proposition which substantiates the need really for humanity
Yeah, yes,
as
you're
as
absolutely right. Yes,
as an active participant in
yes,
its own creativity?
those are big questions. Where to start answering that? I think we need to. So first of all, I should say we believe that there is a vital role for human artists in the future, and that is what we've staked the future of our school on. If it turns out that AI replaces everyone for everything, then we'll live in a much different world and we won't need music schools. But I don't think we're headed for that world very soon. Maybe, I mean, in 100 years, who knows what's going to happen? But I do pay a lot of attention to the AI news every day. There's a lot of competing ideas about what's going to happen, but I think it's going to keep getting better, and keep helping us do things better, and we'll be able to do more things better. That's been my experience so far, and I'm sure a lot of other people's experience. Now, as far as the role of the artist in this future world and what they will need to do, it is definitely changing. It's been changing for quite a while, and I think AI is mostly an acceleration of trends that we've already seen. But looking ahead to organize our school, what we've had to do is try to imagine, like, how is it changing and what are young artists going to have to do in a year from now and 5 years from now. And so I would say that the biggest insight that we have to share and what we've tried to organize. I was just in a meeting talking about this with my partners actually just before this. Um, we've worked at other programs where we could see people learn how to make music better. I can see our courses are working. People's tracks sound better mixed. They're using chords better. They're not using wrong notes. They're singing in tune. They're mixing everything better. It's great. But what the hardest part that I always saw was most people wouldn't develop an original creative perspective. And so they would just seem to get better at copying their idols, essentially, is what they would get better at. And so I was continually trying to think of ways to break them out of this, so that, because it's useless to be like the 500th person or the 5,000th person that can sound like Skrillex or whoever, Armin van Buuren or whoever you want to say. If you want to have a sustainable career and make your mark as an artist, you have to have some fresh point of view or personal story or something unique and original about you to share. And making music with AI is not going to do that, unless I wouldn't rule out that somebody could use. I certainly wouldn't rule out that people can use AI to make original things, but somehow by wrestling with it or making parts with it or using it in some way
Or
that
even
we.
randomly, stochastically, you just shake a M&M jar and you're going to get new patterns, some of which
That
might
is
be.
that is true, but then it comes to the question. This is how I always put it: like, okay, if I could make a song in a second, that means I could sit there all day and make 1,000 songs or something. Okay, which ones are good? And if I was going to share one with you, how would I do that? How would I decide which ones are good? Obviously, it's still coming back to me just picking which one I think is good, right?
Yeah, and as Jack White, formerly of the White Stripes, now doing his solo stuff, mentioned, I think he put it very, very well, that ease of use is the enemy of raw creativity. So
A
if
lot of
things
times, yeah.
if
Hmm.
if things are easy and natural, then you're not struggling specifically with yourself, your own lived experience. And to your exact point, every artist has their own voice, their own unique perspective. That's what makes them an artist and not, for example, a DJ or just an AI prompt jockey, or as they say now, a clanker. There's been two attitudes, though, toward AI, and I wanted to run this by you. There are those who reject AI outright. I'm a science fiction novelist, and I've been reaching out to cartoonists for a graphic novel. And I'm getting two camps: those who are vehemently opposed to any artificial intelligence, any generative AI for their rendering. They find they're Luddites. They're like,
Hmm.
this is a violation of the
Hmm.
essence of who
I'm
I am as I.
familiar.
And then you got a camp, and I think this is slightly more realistic. And I'm segueing now into how I'm making some assumptions into how you're teaching, where you use AI as a very, very useful and valuable tool, which is you're not asking it to do all the heavy lifting for you, but you're looking at it as really this glorified Google to help inspire you, or urge you to think out of the box. Just as you're mentioning that folks are emulating their heroes and regurgitating what they think is an ideal product, AI might shake you up a little bit and reveal that with a few prompts, you might be exploring territory you might otherwise have never thought about or considered. And then you come back to yourself as a real human with real challenges and with something you really want to say. And then you translate that into your music, into your prose, your poetry, your photography. And there's this symbiosis that can exist, which could be healthy and could be helpful. Do you do
So
you do you
yeah, so
believe do you believe that, or is that an underlying precept, or do I
no,
have that?
personally, yeah, I think that using AI as kind of a collaborator is very exciting and fun, and I am doing it myself and everything I'm working on. But um, I do think the thing you said before about struggling with the process is very important also, and I don't think especially in music, the process that you're using to make the sounds, it's part of what leads you to the meaning of what it is, because you have to struggle with doing it. You had to struggle with playing it on the guitar or finding the notes on the piano or finding the beat in the computer or whatever it was. And if you just use the same thing or some preset or something that everybody uses, it doesn't have that special personal quality. You didn't go through that. You just hit some button and then it did something. So it's certainly what's hard to understand, maybe especially for people that aren't involved in music, is if you're working with electronic music, you might be using all these different machines and getting one sound from one, another sound from another, and the whole process might be quite complicated and difficult. I mean, it is usually for people, but that is their process, which is different than playing the guitar, but it's also hard. And some people take the process to they want to begin that process at an earlier stage. Some people want to make all their own sounds from scratch, and they think that's where the creativity lies. Other people don't care about that. They want to use a pre-made drum beat, but they want to write their own melody and tell their own story, and that's where their creativity is. And neither of them is necessarily wrong. But I think if you outsource all of your creativity, it's not very interesting. It's not really your story anymore.
Yeah. I think that's a great segue into the kind of students that you're educating. Can you give us an overview from the vantage point of someone approaching your music school in terms of the classes that you offer? Is there certification? Are there different specialties? What kind of
Sure.
students are you getting, and what kind of services and classes are you offering?
So we're trying to reach people who produce their own music and would like to produce better music and have some aspirations about what to do with their music. Our typical student probably wants to make their own music and DJ at electronic music festivals. That's the most common type we have. But there are other people with other types of goals. Some people want to design sound for video games or remix tracks. Some people are much more interested in producing than performing. Some people want to play with bands. Some people want to compose for media and video. So, um, so, but the concept we're working with is what we would like to do as we build our curriculum is be able to help people with a personalized curriculum so that they're able to reach their goals more efficiently and effectively and more affordably, honestly.
Yeah, that's what I'm assuming. So, the Mobies of the world basically just started spinning in a basement. I don't think Moby took classes and, learned the ropes in any kind of formal pedagogical kind of way. He just started doing it. And I'm tacitly assuming that there's a tremendous degree of variability across the level of knowledge and the kind of knowledge that your students are bringing into learning with you. So, being a DJ, there's technical aspects like how do you set up and work the equipment on the one hand? How do you get the right sound? How do you program tracks? How do you create a set list? That kind of thing, I'm assuming. And then there's the creative element, which is actually doing your own remixes, which takes it to a whole new level. Now, I'm assuming that given such a personalized approach, you cater to all these needs with students who have all these degrees of freedom, if you will, of knowledge, what they're bringing in and what they expect.
Yeah, so I mean, part of our thing, a large part of our thinking in designing this school has been our experiences at other schools and what we wanted to improve and what we could see people needed and wanted. And so one of the main things that I wanted to improve was most schools traditionally have had some kind of fixed programs that you do, and you start at the beginning and go to the end. And it's best for the school if they can get people that are toward the beginning of their journey and then make them take the whole thing. And then that's the most profitable model, right? But what we could see,
And the easiest to manage because
and
you
the
just
easiest to manage, sure.
you plug them into a track,
Yeah.
and then they go through, and then they're certified, and then they pay you, and then they're done.
Also, if you're offering classes in person, it's the organizational part is much harder because you have to get everybody together in space at the same time. You can be a lot more flexible when you're doing it online. So what we could see is with YouTube and now with AI, it's easier and easier for people to teach themselves things. So the most common phenomenon that we see, and this has been true for a while with YouTube, people are able to teach themselves quite a bit on their own, and then they get to some point where it gets frustrating that they don't know what they need next. They don't know what they're missing. They don't know which YouTuber is right. It's all so overwhelming. They don't know what they need to know even. And so at some point they get frustrated and they need guidance. And at that point, they would best benefit from personal guidance of somebody meeting them and saying, oh, you totally missed out on this skill. You need to study this, but this you already know. That's really what they need. And those people, we believe there's a lot of those people. It's probably the most common type. I mean, I'm just focusing on music producers, but you could apply this to almost anything these days. So those people weren't really interested in taking a big program for beginners because they're not beginners and it doesn't really serve their needs. And I even had the better students that would join my last program would often drop out because they would immediately see, oh, I don't need all this beginning stuff. So we're trying to more meet those people and those people are all at different points and on individual journeys towards different places, different goals. So that's part of where the AI comes in, because the AI will let us get people's preferences and backgrounds and then help them to make personalized curricula and goals and plans. And that's kind of the heart of what we're doing. The people in the AI are working together to personalize your education. That's our vision.
So what's the learning experience like, regardless of level or specialty at Futureproof Music School? What happens in a session?
Sure. Well, we have three parts of it, three important pillars, I guess I could say. Obviously, you have your online courses that have videos and projects to work on that you're going to hand in to prove that you learned the skills. We also have one-on-one mentor sessions. We have one a month for people. You can have more if you want, but we wanted to keep it at a relatively low price point so it's affordable for people. And then probably what we consider the most important part is we have group sessions on Zoom almost every day with one of the teachers where students can join freely. One of the most important parts of arts education is being part of a creative community where you can share your ideas and meet other people that are interested in what you're doing. And we now, through Zoom and Discord and other technologies, we can offer that online. And I would say that's probably the most important part of what we're doing, honestly.
I think a lot of what you're saying and the structure of a lot of your pedagogy answers the question of this AI debacle. Because if you're an artist and you look at that blinking prompt and then you type a few things and enter return, that is utterly devoid of any sense of human camaraderie or community, networking,
Yes.
or connection.
Yes.
So
It's very boring, actually.
Yeah, everything that you described to me illustrates one of the essences of your value proposition, which is, if we are struggling in this age of the Velvet Sundowns, bullshit AI bands and synthetic music, and anyone can be a DJ in 5 seconds, the answer to that is you are creating and sustaining and energizing communities of like-minded creative souls to learn together and to grow together, and to go out there empowered with the ability to express their humanity. I mean,
Yes.
that more than anything is not, the natural evolution of C prompt /. It's a human.
I mean, what I was saying before about people not learning to be creative, that's really the core of it. If people are able to make music easier with AI, it'll just be easier for them to make cookie cutter music. And the people and then there will be some people who will use it in some way that we haven't thought of yet. Like they'll generate a track and take it apart into pieces and sample part of it and play it backwards or something, and that'll be something cool that they did.
Brian Eno has been doing lots of interesting things. He's old. He's older than me.
He has. I'm aware of that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that kind of experiment, everything from the microtonal stuff to ambient stuff to just to your exact point, chopping things up and just kind of randomly iterating them in ways that are surprising, and then taking the human approach at the end and cobbling it back together in a way that could be a form of self-expression. I'm Pollyanna about all this stuff. I'm not one of those guys who are freaking out that the bots are going to take over the world and destroy creativity. I think the pendulum is already swinging the other way. You can't go to any social media platform now and not be bombarded by purely unedited, bot created shit. It's all over the place. And I think people are already just feeling allergic to it. You almost feel like your pride is violated, that someone can create something in a nanosecond and expect you to spend even a minute of your own time processing it.
I mean, I think actually, I appreciate what you're saying, and I think the biggest challenge is going to be. This was already a huge challenge, and it's only going to get worse now. We need better mechanisms to find good stuff. You know
Right.
what I mean? And
100%.
the mechanisms that we have now, like they've tried everything with YouTube and Facebook and Spotify and all them, but it works okay. But like Spotify can recommend music to me that sounds, it's the same type of music that I like, but it's not the same quality of music that I like. It's usually like kind of mid, and I don't know, maybe some of it's made by AI, but it doesn't really matter. It's not good. So
And I'm just wondering if overall expectations for quality will similarly go down, or the entire aesthetic on the part of the general audience is going to transform into its own mediocrity as a consequence of this. But who knows? I mean, to give a bit of context, I was actually a dance club manager in the 90s in Chicago. And I used to book DJs, the likes of Hex Hector and all those guys back in the 90s. And they would show up sometimes nationally or even internationally with their box of records.
mhm.
They had crates, and if they were really a celebrity DJ, they had sometimes a dozen big crates.
Yeah,
They'd
they'd have a
come
guy to carry the crates, right?
with
That's
a
the thing.
van, and they had their gophers, and then they would set up,
Mhm,
and they
mhm.
were like royalty in the booth, and they were expensive, and it was it was hand mixed, right, with the scratching and the needle on the turntable. And we've gone full digital, and I've just found it fascinating. I think some things have been lost, but other things have been gained. And I think we're entering this new era of pure digitization where it's kind of anything goes, but same rules apply, right? You need to pay attention to the dance floor. And you can't come in with a preordained set list because you're grooving with the room,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that will always be the case for sure. That's
Yeah.
definitely something. I mean, I feel like whatever happens with technology, there will always be some people that figure out how to stand out from everyone else. Like back then, what you're saying, one of the important things you had to do to stand out was just have all those records. Like if you didn't have the records, you could be a DJ, pure and simple, right? And better if they're good records that all sound like they go together. And just be able to do that, that was already, fairly challenging. Like you had to go to all these record stores and collect them
Yeah,
over years.
and
And
you had to adjust the speed of the turntable
exactly.
manually to segue between, let's say, a 130, right, to a 115 to a 140 beat, right? You're manually segueing the end of one song into the beginning of the other. There was an art to it, and there was a hands-on application of, you got to pay attention, and you're listening and you're watching the dance floor. I think that's a huge
Well,
differentiator too.
that's the skill right there. That's the creative human part that can't be replaced. I think we've seen like technology has a tendency to make things easier and easier to do. So now you just hit a button, you don't need to sync the records together anymore. But even without technology, like I'm an instrumentalist. I'm a bass player. In the 60s and 70s, that was probably the golden age of studio session players, like in Los Angeles and Nashville and some other places. And since that, there were some people that worked all the time and really cleaned up back then, and they were good musicians. Don't get me wrong, but over the years, like everyone's always learning what people did before. So every generation, whatever the previous generation did, there's going to be 100 times more people that learn how to do it. So now, 2025, like we have computers and everything, but the number of people that can play instruments really good is also like way higher than it ever has been in
Go to
history. You know what I mean?
Instagram. You've got
Yeah,
I
totally.
literally just saw a 7-year-old girl shredding Randy Rhoads as an
Right,
homage to
totally. And so,
Ozzy, and it wasn't AI. She's 7 years
Mhm.
old and she's shredding.
And so my point is like, if you're like Randy Rhoads and you're the first person to do that, nobody else can do it. It's amazing. Like, and then you're a hero. You're an artist. You made your mark or whatever. But now that 7-year-old girl can watch some tape and learn it. You know, and little kids are really good at copying stuff.
Yeah, they're
So you
better.
often
They're
see like,
better. Yeah, yeah,
right,
yeah.
they're better. Exactly.
Their
So,
brains are forming, and she became Randy Rhoads.
but at
So
that point, nobody cares about that anymore because there's so many people that can do it. So then it's like, what can you do to stand out that's going to be different? It's different things. I don't know what it is today, but it is kind of clear what it is actually. You can't. Things have sped up, and people are making so much content, and we live in such an oversaturated world. If you want it to stand out, you have to view it more as like you're making like a stream of content that is what your expression is. Musicians are still out here thinking like, oh, I'll make this album that'll be great, and then it'll do everything for me. And it's like,
100,000%. I'm a writer and a blogger and a podcaster. I come from an
Mhm.
agency pedigree background. When I finally had to grow up and get a real job, I ended up in the agency world for marketing and PR. And I have this late life creative renaissance. And I've come to that exact same realization where we're all like, remember Horton Hears a Who, that Dr. Seuss book?
Yeah.
We are here, we are here.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. That's right.
So that little Who guy is at the top building with the little megaphone. And as a content creator in 2025, if you are not cranking the shit out of stuff on every available channel, I can't imagine how you can even get seen or noticed, why
Yeah.
anyone would care. And to your exact point, you can't belabor over something
Uh
for
huh.
years to polish that turd, because by the time you're done with it, a billion other pieces of similar content has already passed
Yeah.
you on by. So you got to haul ass. You got to create. You got to
Yeah.
get up there and enter the stream, as you're saying. And this is my next question to you. As part of your curricula, do you offer that kind of downstream marketing advice, like, you're pumping and priming people to enter a world as we're describing, and I also call it the wall, the tsunami of content. And you knock on that wall, you try to climb it, and the best artists break through it. They get lucky, or they're persistent, they got grit, they have a great idea, combination of all these things. You got to bust through that wall one way or another. And do you give your students advice on that kind of differentiation, on that kind of grit and persistence?
Yeah. I mean, that is an important focus. Um, we are working. That is going to be a core part of our curriculum. We're still making the courses on that, I would say. So we don't really have any courses in that direction now, but we definitely have mentors that are very well experienced in
Yeah,
that. And
especially, your Skrillex guy. Your partner in crime. I mean, he's out there kicking ass and taking names. So I'm sure there's best practices that can be shared for really raising the flag, planting the flag, and maintaining mind share.
Mhm.
We're in an attention based society right now. Doesn't
Mhm.
matter if you're a billionaire. If you're not trending, you don't exist.
I think in our world, a lot of it is also uh, becoming part of the community of people that are doing things.
Right.
And then you get mentioned. It's the same in any community, I guess, but you get mentioned by other people in your world, and then that's how other fans learn about you. Or you do
Yeah.
collabs with people that have different audiences or whatever, stuff like that.
100%. And in a sense, you're creating your own community there at the
Hmm.
school, right?
Yeah.
So I think it becomes self-perpetuating. It's positive feedback between creating communities of like-minded souls, educating and empowering them with a specialty, and then that carries its own momentum forward for carrying it through and influencing the influencers to influence the masses who are just gobbling this stuff up, with the problem, as you mentioned, that it becomes increasingly difficult to differentiate the aesthetics or inherent quality of anything that's out there anymore because we're just pummeled by stuff.
But it's funny. We say that, and like I go, I go on my TV and I surf through all the shows I can watch, and there's 1,000 times more than I could ever watch, even if I lived forever. But still, how many really great ones are there that I can't wait to watch? Not that many, actually. So, and I guess we've all developed more particular tastes over the years of having more and more things offered to us. But um, I still think like when you get into some niche genre or something that you really like, then you learn actually no, it's not that overwhelming. Most of the stuff is mid, and there's a few people that are better than everyone else, just like in every other area. That's a very interesting phenomenon to me, actually. And so, well, what is the secret of those people?
Yeah, 100%. More is not necessarily more. And it almost seems like it's a self fulfilling prophecy of bullshit generation, which is it's almost like the amount of sheer content out there is directly proportional to how bad most of it is. It's just there's good stuff there,
Some
but
philosophical principle.
everyone's inspired to be. Everyone's a creator now. Someone's grandma has their podcast now. You just plug in a mic, and no one gives a shit anyway. So you just kind of crank it up.
The wildest thing to me about that is I see it's especially true in AI because so many people try to jump on AI, but you see so many of these podcasts that look so professional and they have like 33 listeners or something, and then you see some guy who's just talking out of his back office in front of his bookshelf that has like 500,000. It's hard to it's
Well,
hard to
you bring
predict.
up a great point. I'm also on TikTok, so I do these video rants sometimes daily, and they cover everything from politics to music to whatever. And I'm a micro influencer. I have something like 15,500 followers, which is just chicken shit, and maybe 250,000 likes. To your point, a 12-year-old will set his farts on fire and he'll get 10 million
Yeah.
views.
Yes.
It's all relative, but I'll corroborate your observation, and it's almost become its own DIY style. Some of the most popular TikTokers
Yeah.
have the messiest, shittiest production. They're literally the camera angle is wrong, and they do a horrible job with the captioning, and the sound quality sucks, and they've got a righteous, zealous following, sometimes in the millions, and they've really established their niche. So our aesthetic standards are skewed too, where
Yeah.
we're so used to quality. It's like an ongoing Blair Witch Project. I don't know if you remember that movie,
Mhm.
where a bunch of kids with an 8mm ran around in the woods, and all of a sudden they're showing it at the THX movie theater on Saturday night, right? Just because it was different. We're
Yeah.
so used to things being polished, and then this piece of shit showed up, and everyone got excited just because it was different. It's almost this exaggerated expression, this new aesthetic, where it doesn't matter if it's shitty, it's got to be cool.
Well, I think AI is going to drive that more too because it's just getting easier and easier to make generic stuff.
Right.
So part of the reaction to that, I don't think this is the whole story, but part of the reaction to that will be an even increased desire for authenticity from artists. which you could get from somebody just like singing into their phone as opposed to doing a studio session or something. It seems more authentic to people.
Right.
But another thing that makes me wonder is I definitely think this will happen too. People will be tempted and will use AI to help them make their own stuff just so they can do it faster. Because if you're in a world where you have to make, a song every day or something to stand out, how can you do that? But if
Yeah,
you
the
have
sheer volume.
and
Yeah.
right, and if you go to one of these big AI generators, I was just trying to do this last couple of days. Um, they make pretty generic sounding stuff, but there's ways to, it's more developed with visual art. There's ways to train your visual art engine or your text writing system so that it writes like you. I have a friend who's done that with his writing. He's been a blogger for a long time, and he has this one trained out, and he can crank out a new post every day now. That's pretty. I mean, he still edits them himself. They're not
Yeah,
totally
but the heavy
automated, but it's doing
lifting is
like,
done by the
yeah, it's doing a
LLM.
bunch of
Yeah.
it, and it pretty
Yeah.
much is stuff that he would have right?
Yeah.
So I wonder how much of that we're going to see and what effect it's going to have. It's like, I'm really not sure, but I definitely think it will have an effect because people are trying to. It's almost like in this day and age, like the music is just part of being an artist. It's not like what people really want from an artist is to kind of identify with you, or you know what I mean, or to share in your experience somehow. That's like the more mystical
Right.
level of what being an artist even is. You're trying to communicate something about who you are and how you feel about stuff. And you're going to want your music has to sound like your music to work like that. It can't just be some generic stuff that you made, but it doesn't all have to be played by you necessarily. So,
I mean, I'm reminded of the Nobel Prize winning physicists. Like they discovered the Higgs particle in 2012, and then the paper that revealed that they made this major discovery in physics over at CERN, it had like 500 names on
uh-huh.
it. But one dude won the Nobel Prize.
Well, we were just talking about that this morning at we just had a curriculum meeting before this. The artists of today always has kind of been true, but big pop artists are like big pop music artists are managing a staff. If you look at somebody like we talk about Beyonce because she's a good example. She's got people doing all kinds of things for her, and her role, she's kind of like a movie producer. Like you're tying all the things together and making sure that there's some vision of how it all comes together. And if you're using AI as part of this, it's not going to change it that much at this point, to be honest.
It's already been done. I mean, look at like Bill Maher, the comic. He's got his weekly show. Love him or hate him, he's got a staff of at least it seems to me a dozen. A dozen.
Takes a dozen
Dozen
people to
full
keep
time.
him
Yeah,
supplied
a
with.
dozen full-time writers, right? And they're all they do is write him jokes, right? Are they his jokes when he goes up there? And if the joke sails, then he'll take credit. And if the joke bombs, someone's getting chewed out on Monday morning.
And so I think what's happening now and everything is like people are using AI to write the jokes, but then somebody still has to decide which joke to tell. You can go and be like, write me 1,000 jokes for Bill Maher, and it'll do it, but like a lot of them won't be that funny, and who's going to decide which one is good? And so you're kind of in the same position you already were. There's just more things. We always say in music, like the last years, there's been all these technologies to make it easier to make music. There's like you can buy a pack of samples that have all the sounds go together, and you just kind of snap them together like Legos, and then that's your song. Is that really your song? Kind of. You kind of made something, but it doesn't sound that interesting or original or that anyone would care about it. And that's kind of where we're at with the AI generators. I feel like.
Yeah, and it sounds like that's where you're at with your school, which is you're all about the ghost in the machine. You're all about heightening a creative person's individuality, bolstering their confidence to the point that they're able to just cut through the bullshit of what usually gets in the way of a creative person's trajectory, which is self-doubt and apprehension about their own capabilities and talents and concept, and let them express themselves and do so in a way that's unabashed, that's natural, that's fluid, to keep up with the pace of 2025, where if you're a creator, you really need to create. You need
Mm-hmm.
to just pump stuff out,
Yeah.
If you use AI as a tool, then great, go for it. But don't lose your own soul when you do it, and realize that the resistance that you're feeling, the tough nut that you got to crack for that self-expression, is what fuels the whole process. And if they can connect with a community of like-minded souls and experts like you and your partners, then it seems to work. And screw AI. Who gives a shit about AI? It doesn't really matter, right?
Well, it's funny. I have spent a lot of time personally building the AI for our school, but at the whole time I've been telling everybody else this is just like 20% of what we're
Right.
doing, and the reason we need the AI also is because there's so much to learn, and the AI kind of knows everything, you know, and also we have our AI is loaded with like manuals of software that our students use, so it knows more details about our subject
Yeah,
than.
just the mechanics of working the boards, right? Adjusting levels, making sure that the nuts and bolts of music production get done properly.
Well,
And
it's
that,
like, go ahead.
yeah, that
Oh,
seems
I
to,
was just going to say, it's like without the AI tutor, you have your courses, but what about all the things that aren't in the courses? And
yeah,
so if you have any question that isn't in the course, the AI can be right there and tell you. So,
perfect for troubleshooting. I mean, that's
mhm.
really what those things are ideally designed for, right? And let's keep in mind, we keep talking about AI like it's this HAL 9000 lurking in the background. ChatGPT 5 just came out, and I would put money that if you looked at its IQ in terms of its like creativity and its level of sentience, self-awareness, I don't know if you have pets like a cat or a dog. It's not nearly at that level. Okay. So when we're all talking about, artificial general intelligence and the brain in a box, these stochastic transformer based models are dumb as hell. They're still probabilistic matrix math engines. And there's no one thinking back there. There's no thought. It's just math at this point.
Well, just to play the devil's advocate for a minute, it's fine. It's fine to say that, but it does make you reflect on how, speaking from experience, it makes you reflect on how your own brain works and what are you actually, because
I even wrote a blog on this, that if Chat GPT did anything, I've been on business calls with like real humans, and everyone's throwing the buzzwords like
yeah.
paradigm shift and KPIs and ROI, and we all sound like bots.
Well,
you
that's
know
all the training data that made ChatGPT talk the way that it does,
So,
actually. But
if we think that the bots are stupid, to your exact point, they're just mirroring and echoing the bullshit that's been coming out of our mouths for decades, right? For
yeah,
hundreds of years. Yeah. So that's a good point. But at the same time, personally, I appreciate guys like you and your partners who are keeping the EDM and the electronic music pulse going. Hearing your pitch, I almost want to sign up. If
we
someone
can make you an
listening
EDM
wants to,
star.
yeah, if someone listening wants a piece of your action, like to learn more about John, learn more about Futureproof Music School, where do they go? What do you do? I'm gonna put links in the description of this podcast so folks could learn more and sign up. Do you guys offer a demo course? How do you get students' feet wet?
Yeah, just you can check it all out at futureproofmusicschool.com, and we do have a 7-day free trial of our program that includes everything, and you can even have a personal meeting with my partner Max to get you on the right track. Also, if you go to the site, if you click on AI Music Coach at the top, you can go to a page and talk to our AI, and there's even a voice mode where you can basically talk to it like a voice call. And our AI, its name is Cadence. You can upload your music tracks and it'll analyze them. You can also do it with the voice version.
Oh, that's super cool. So you're using the AI even for like, your business development in terms of outreach, where usually you'd have like a little consultative session, and now, folks can literally talk to your bot.
Yeah, that's right. The bot it's a pretty good salesperson. It makes a pretty convincing pitch for it. I've spent the most time on the AI getting it to talk with the tone that I want, because they tend to be either too boring or too cringy. And
Cringy or often even condescending.
it's
Sometimes
really
I want to
hard
help.
to get it kind of in the middle, but I think ours works pretty well at this point. The voice version is quite fun to talk to, actually.
Great. And what kind of future aspirations? Like if you look at what you're doing and what your partners are doing now, 6 months, a year, couple years down the line, the way trending is going, the way the music scene is going, how do you see yourselves?
Well, I mean, obviously, we'd like to grow the school and get more students and have a thriving community. But the ultimate success for us will be to produce successful artists who go out and make a mark for themselves. And so that's what we're looking to do.
That's great. And then, are you building up a testimonial database of happy students and maybe
Uh-huh.
even some of their work? I mean, the output is the output. The proof is in the pudding. So it's not just students bloviating about how awesome you are, but
Yeah.
almost even before and after. Before Futureproof, I was spinning like this, and then now after, I'm king of the booth. Here I
Now
am.
we're working on some stuff just like that. Actually, we've just been reaching out to the students to make some video testimonials, and we, even though we have only been in business this year, we, my partner Max and I both have students that have been working with us already for years, and so we do have success stories of people who are current students who were already working with us, for longer. We cannot make you into an EDM star in 30 days unless
Right.
you're already really close to being an EDM star.
You were just that little icing,
You just
icing,
need it. Well,
icing on the cake.
what we
You,
used to do at my old school was my partner Max was basically my best teacher and my head teacher in my prior program. And when we got people that were almost just literally, their music was good and they had it together and they were ready to be more successful, then I would have him work with them and he would help them like meet the people they needed to meet or figure out what are the last things, the missing pieces they need to do to get somewhere.
yeah, yeah. So very exciting, and I'm going to make a little prediction. I think the music scene right now doesn't know what to do with itself. It's a post
Mm,
modern meta
mm.
multi-genre. You got
Yeah.
sampling within a sample, because it's hell's bells. It's like if Beyonce can do country, that's just the tip of the iceberg. Everybody's doing everything because everything's mixing all together. And to your point, people have trouble differentiating good from bad from ugly. It's all just this wash of content. So you might as well just combine heavy metal with jazz within
Yeah.
two measures, right? Everything's going apeshit. I have a prediction that EDM, electronic dance music, is just gonna make a resurgence in in
Why
a
do,
in
why
a
do you
in
say
a
that?
powerful way, because I think it exemplifies our age in ways. I've got a friend in New York, and he's a detractor. He hates it. He calls it spreadsheet music, right? Because you're literally programming all the elements. I personally find it very meditative. The whole idea of trance techno. I love that shit. And I think everyone needs to calm the hell down. We're all agitated. The political scene is polarized. Everyone's freaking out. And I think trance and EDM, you know how it's the dopamine in our brains. It's like, I got the ADHD going on, and I'm on the Peloton listening to the EDM, right? And it's a dopamine booster and it calms me down. I think EDM is the cure all for a lot of our ails. That's just my prediction.
Well, I mean, yeah, if you want to look historically, like, I mean, people have always needed to have big festivals where they can release their
Right.
feelings and move on with existence.
Yeah,
And
like
so,
rave. People need to rave more, just rave, dance, sweat, burn carbs, listen to EDM, and get your dopamine boosted. It's like Ritalin for kids, everybody. It is great.
you make a good case. I mean, yeah, I couldn't argue that's how part of how I've managed to cope with reality for all these years, obviously. I mean, I still go out. I mean, I saw one of my favorite artists, the drum and bass artist Fotek, who was one of the people who really started drum and bass, and he played here a couple months ago. That was the last show that I saw.
Well, thanks so much for joining me on the Bald Ambition podcast. It's been a lovely conversation in terms of just what could be considered a small to medium sized business, yours, and you're selling consultatively in terms of really understanding your customers, and you're understanding wonderfully the context in which they are overcoming all these hurdles of technology and redundancy and this ubiquity of content. And it sounds like you're bang on point for creating community, empowering your students with their own individuality so they find their own voice, and providing them the customized resources that they need to succeed based on some of the technology which is creating some of these problems, right?
That's always like that.
You're like, you're like flying our own airplanes into our own buildings here, but doing it in a very productive and creative way, right?
Interesting way to put it. Yeah. I mean, I have heard people say like AI can teach you anything, and it's like if AI can teach it to you, AI can probably do it too. But it's not really like that though, actually. Because
No. And again, I think you're proving the point that it's an absolutely wonderful tool. Come on, you had Luddites burning down printing presses, in the Gutenberg era. And then you had everyone going nuts with every single milestone in human technological development. And now everyone's going nuts with AI. It is a quantum leap.
this is a big
We
one.
still don't know. And they probably will eventually take over the world. And whether they kill us or just find us redundant, they might just find us redundant. Like you just get out of our way, or just
In
we
the
don't even
meantime, we
care.
may as well make some dance floor bangers.
Yeah, exactly. And they're going to have their own raves. They're going to have their own EDM going on. But anyway, until then, I think it's an exciting time to live. So
On that note,
yeah. So thanks again for making time. And we'll put the links in the description. There'll also be a link if you have any questions for John or myself. You could reach out. The podcast will be streaming on all podcast platforms: Spotify, Apple, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Outcast. And we'd love to hear back from you. And maybe in 6 months, a year, I could bring you on back to see how the school's going, how the music industry is evolving. And I just personally had a wonderful time chatting with you because it's a sweet spot for me. Technology, AI, electronic dance music. I mean, how good can it get? And it got pretty good. So thank you so much, John.
Well, thanks for having me on, Mookie. Yeah, I had a fun time talking with you too.